Alright, welcome everyone. My name is Marcus, and today we're going to be covering IoT in Brazil. Now, what exactly is IoT? IoT stands for Internet of Things. Essentially, it's a connection of things, which are basically a network of objects that have the ability to exchange data with other devices, typically done over the internet. Nowadays, this can be pretty much anything, so thermostats and refrigerators and smart home appliances, but it can even be more than that. It can be things like cars and health devices. The goal essentially of IoT is to make everyday life more automized and convenient for everyone. All right, moving on from that. Who is using IoT? Specifically in Brazil, farmers have begun adopting IoT devices in their farming practices that help collect data on the soil moisture and plant health, which improves farming. And the cities in Brazil have also begun implementing IoT smart meters that help energy consumption become more efficient. So there's a lot of cool stuff going on with IoT in Brazil. Next up is, where is IoT being used? So IoT in Brazil is being used often in cities, like we just said, especially in Rio de Janeiro. In Rio, smart mobility and traffic IoT devices are being used to improve traffic management and public services in the cities. In Brazil, a common thing is going to be public transportation. That's a big deal in Brazil compared to how it is in the United States. And right now, IoT devices are being used basically to monitor traffic. So this includes like stoplights and cameras and things like that that help improve the flow. So that way they can not only build more efficient roads, but they can manage stoplights and things like that to better improve public services. Some applications of IoT that I find interesting personally that are being used in Brazil are these better traffic systems, as well as the efficient power usage that we talked about earlier, along with home management. That's something that I find pretty interesting, is a lot of the home management and automation that is happening in houses due to IoT. So that's something I find pretty cool. Next up is, why IoT? Now, this is sort of a SWOT analysis for Brazil. The strength is a diverse market applications. It pretty much can be used anywhere from farming to cities to houses to medical. It covers a lot of different things. There are government initiatives in Brazil that provide a lot of funding for these IoT companies, which then grows these IoT devices. So government initiatives is another bonus, along with market growth. In Brazil, we've seen a big boom in the market cap of IoT devices. So there's a lot of money being invested into these devices that are helping make everyday life better. The weaknesses right now, connectivity challenges. There's a skill shortage and lack of regulation. So for connectivity, essentially in certain areas, it can be a little bit hard for people to have access to the internet, which makes it really hard for Internet of Things to exist. And so in rural areas, there are some connectivity challenges. A skill shortage, where with it being so new, IoT isn't super well known. There's not a big labor force for it, so there's a skill shortage, as well as a lack of regulation. Again, with it being so new, there's not a lot of rules regulating it, so this creates some concerns we'll talk about in a second. But the opportunities. Some of the opportunities include 5G expansion. We talked about last week a lot about 5G and how it's growing, so 5G expansion is a big one. Smart agriculture is another one, and urban innovation. Those are two things we've kind of already talked about that are growing and will continue to grow into the future, which is really cool. Next up is threats. The main threat is cybersecurity risk, and then the second one is the biggest one, is the data privacy concerns. So with these IoT devices collecting data on pretty much everyone, it does let you make life a little bit more convenient, but at the same time, how much of your privacy are you willing to give up in order to have that better automation? That's a big concern, as well as infrastructure limitations, where IoT sort of needs to be at the basis, at the foundation of new infrastructure that's being built. And so in very rural areas, it's sort of hard, where they're having to change their infrastructure, which is causing a lot of investment decisions and a couple of challenges. Now, moving on, how is Internet of Things helping with the 17 SDGs that we talk about so often? So one of the first ones we already talked about a little bit is energy, making energy more affordable and clean for the environment. So with the IoT monitoring devices, they are able to make it so that way energy consumption is less. So we're spending less on energy, which makes it cheaper, as well as it makes it cleaner because we're not spending as much energy. So the energy that we do create, we're able to be more efficient and store it better. So then it's going to be cheaper and cleaner. So that helps with SDG 7. And then the next one is zero hunger, which is SDG 2. IoT devices, like we said, were being used by farmers to improve farming techniques, which leads to better food supplies and less hunger, especially in the rural areas in Brazil, which is really great. And then lastly, two truths and a lie. I'll read over these, and then you can go ahead and pick one and try and see if you can get it right. So the first option is Brazil is replacing over 1 million conventional energy meters with smart meters to improve the grid efficiency. The next option is IoT adoption in Brazil is limited only to urban areas and has not yet reached the agricultural sector. And then the last one, smart city projects in Brazil are using more IoT to improve traffic management and public services. So I'll go ahead and give you a second to think about it. And then on the next slide, we will see that the second option is the lie. IoT adoption in Brazil is limited only to urban areas and has not reached the agricultural section. This is not true. It has actually reached the agricultural section, like we were just said a little bit earlier. So that is the lie. And that's pretty much all I have for you. So thank you for listening. I hope you learned something about IoT and Brazil and how they relate and how it's helping them live a better life. Thank you.